Hello all. I am so sorry for being late. Glad to see that Josh is here too, so he'll be able to jump in and share as we go. So thanks for joining, Josh, as I get started. So glad to have you here. So welcome. Wanted to jump in and glad to see that we have some folks here interested in science. I'm really excited to be part of this presentation and share with you some details about PhD Science TEKS edition. Fortunately, I get to be part of the review process and really thinking about these materials. I have a deep connection as a former science teacher, and so really excited to share even my own insights as to why I think this is an exciting product for our K through 5 science, young scientists to be able to explore and get to know. So to get us started, I just want to start by sharing that some of you may have been listening earlier about great minds in the work with Eureka Math TEKS edition. PhD Science TEKS edition is a newer product, but it's really exciting that they're developing for our students here in Texas. And it really is a different approach to the way that we teach and engage our young learners in science instruction. So I want to focus at the beginning part of this is always really important to me is why do we want to focus on instructional materials? And I think some of you heard me speak to this yesterday, but I'll say it again, is that we know there are many challenges and many ways that we need to adjust and respond to meet the needs of students and families during this current reality. And we know there's considerations about technology, staffing, use of classroom space. All of those are new, unique, and challenging. Really, given everything that districts are adjusting to, we just want to take a moment to ground ourselves in why it's important for TA to provide districts with this Texas home learning and specifically this instructional materials that we've procured free to districts. Based on the research, we do know that instructional materials matter and help to support student achievement increases when students are provided with consistent opportunities to work on assignments that are aligned to grade level standards, when they are support strong instruction to ensure students are deeply engaged in what they are learning, and that they include guidance to help teachers meaningfully differentiate for all students, including those with unfinished learning. You already are looking at and using materials, so using something that is high quality, that also helps teachers to set high expectations for students to meet those grade level standards. All of these are important reasons why instructional materials matter and why we would invest and support as our teachers and students are grappling with the new situation that we have and reality of what is a little bit uncertain to come, but hopefully these materials will help with some of the gaps that we discussed yesterday and addressing some of those needs. I want to focus today on sharing about the instructional approach and components of PhD science, looking at the supports for learning loss and other COVID challenges and how PhD Science TEKS edition can support with that. We'll jump into a little bit with licensing, costs, and additional considerations that I know you'll have questions, and then some additional if you have additional questions throughout, this is a small group during this session, so please come off mute if you would like to, or share in the chat, and Josh and Kendrick and I are all here to help answer the questions you have. So feel free to ask as we go. So really jumping in, I want to talk about the instructional approach and components. You've seen this a lot. I know some of you have been here all day looking at materials, but I really want to bring to view how PhD Science, TEKS edition, does address these 6 foundational components of all of our Texas home learning products. In PhD Science, we do have daily units. They're called modules, but they are units. They're broken up into smaller concept groups. And then within there are, of course, lessons and assessments, both formative and summative throughout, with guidance of how to work with remote learning. All of that is provided and aligned, of course, to our Texas standards for science and the ALPS as well. And then additionally, we have PhD Science is available in Nsync, and that provides a really great opportunity to share virtually and utilize, and is easy to maneuver and work with students and families. With PhD Science, we have a strong collection of videos for all lessons that are targeted to the student and are student facing. Those are available in both English and Spanish, and really help to support students' development virtually as well, and a great tool to be used with parents to understand what students are learning, even if they're in the classroom. The materials are all, you're able to access all of those materials free digitally, and able to print the materials as you need for this particular product. We have, specifically, I called out that K-5, we have Spanish materials. All the student-facing materials in those videos are in Spanish, and the family sheets at the beginning also are in Spanish to support families in use. And for our students, especially here in Texas, we have many science classrooms that are taught in Spanish, or we're working to support our bilingual students. There are also, just to let you know, there's guidance throughout, similar to other Great Minds products, in which teachers can get tips and ways to support differentiated instructions for our English learners, as well as students with disabilities to support their learning needs. And that's guidance to be used throughout all of the lessons and modules. There's formative assessments. The assessment structure is really interesting and very helpful. There's checkpoints throughout to check those conceptual understandings throughout the module at different points. There's engineering and science challenges. So there's an ability to apply knowledge and do, which is something everyone in science really gets excited about. And then, of course, we have an end of module summative assessment to check on how students did throughout the module. For the progress monitoring, there is guidance given around the conceptual understanding based on what you see, what are anticipated student responses, and then what you may need to do or adjust to support students with the different answers that they are giving. I want to talk about the curriculum pillars. These are definitely the ones that are similar to, again, the Eureka product, but we have, this is a knowledge building curriculum. It is coherent, and the purpose here too is to have joyful and rigorous engagement for students to authentically engage in the science content and experience that as young scientists. Part of the reason why I love it, it really does immerse students in the learning of science. And it's, we'll see a little bit later, but it's interdisciplinary, and you'll see the connection with fine arts and literacy as well, which is embedded throughout. And then lastly, there is this fourth pillar that is about educative for teachers. We know that not all of our teachers come to us especially in K-5 with strong science content knowledge. They may have a love and passion for science, but not always the background for it. So they're excited to teach, but what's great about this curriculum too is that it supports the teachers in deeply understanding the concept and the connections to prior learning to be able to support their students as they grow in their content development and their skills development. I wanted to jump into each of those curriculum pillars one by one and talk about some specific components within here that I think are unique and interesting as students develop. So some of the aspects of the knowledge building throughout PhD science modules, you're going to see students participating in investigations, discussions, activities, and they truly are building scientific enduring understandings and competence. And so across modules and the levels, so the different grade levels, students revisit fundamental science concepts to deepen their understanding of those concepts and apply them to make sense of new phenomena. So that's a really exciting part, is that this is based in natural phenomena so that students are able to truly engage and learn about the science through that lens. I'm sharing just some examples and some screenshots for you to see of how this knowledge building happens. So I wanted to point out this first one of the Grand Canyon picture. At the beginning, there's always a notice and wonder routine, which provides all students an entry point into the phenomena, because you can ask that question about what do you notice, what do you wonder from that picture, and it allows all students to have an entry point into the science you're about to discuss. So we can use that in lots of different instructional situations, but it's a great way to begin to learn and have them think about the world around them. The curriculum uses 3 visual organizational tools that work hand in hand together to help students build knowledge. And these are present in every module at every grade level and are really crucial components to these high quality instructional materials, and understanding their purpose is important for being able to use them effectively. So I'm going to jump into them. The first is the anchor model. And you can see a picture here of the anchor model. This actually evolves over the module's time period so that it continues to grow. So the anchor model is a class model that students develop together throughout the entire module. It is centered around and represents students' explanation of anchor phenomena. So I think I failed to mention, but every module is fixed. I mentioned the word phenomena, but each module has a specific phenomena in which students are learning and developing the science associated with that. So they have a strong connection. And so throughout, they take this anchor model and they continue to grow and expand on that as their science knowledge grows and expands. So it becomes more complex throughout. And you would see by the end of the module, this anchor model is much more extensive and complete. This is just one version in the beginning, and they begin to develop even some sentence structures to explain what they're seeing in strong practices in science of labeling and recognizing what's there. So a lot of skills development alongside the concepts. The driving question board is a tool to help organize students' questions about the anchor phenomena, and which is represented in that picture, that anchor model. It increases student engagement because it highlights connections between scientific concepts and their enduring understandings. And this knowledge that they continue to grow and what questions they're having as they continue to explore and understand the science and that scientific phenomena better. This is a really great way to give kids a voice who have those questions, and especially in kinder through 5th grade. And I know especially in those lower, there's lots of questions that go on, but this is that place where they can take them, and you can see over the course of the module how the complexity and the types of questions they're asking really develops, which is a great way to see their growth and check their understanding. The anchor chart is a class summary of those foundational learnings that students develop together throughout an entire module. And this chart really reflects the scientific knowledge that can be applied to other phenomena. So really pulling out some strong key points and then making them into clear explanations that students can use as they carry on with their scientific learning. As you can see already, I like talking about this content and think it's really exciting. I'm going to jump into coherence, but I get excited about just the approach and what this could mean for budding young scientists to come about. So I want to jump into the coherence here. Each module is going to weave a storyline through which students make sense of compelling phenomena. Each lesson builds on previous lessons, allowing students to reflect on their learning, generate new questions, and investigate related topics. Throughout the module, students connect their learning to make sense of the anchor phenomena as students integrate and apply new knowledge, coherence, and they extend that across the modules, grade levels, and even content areas. And so I just gave you a little snapshot of some of the ways that you can see this happening. There's an overarching essential question, and then connecting each concept and sets of lessons. There's these focus questions. And all of this is guided through the module overview. There's specific building of content knowledge that explains how knowledge is built throughout the module. This is for the teacher to really see that arc in learning that's going to happen, and the coherence of how one lesson and one concept builds into another. Just a quick glance about when you think about the structure. So for a grade level is broken up into different modules or those units. Each module can have multiple concepts that are connected together under that anchor phenomena. A module contains a science or engineering challenge for students to put that scientific knowledge and skills into application and demonstrate. And then there's an end of module assessment. Within each concept, there are lesson sets that are then broken up into lessons. And those lesson sets have checks for understanding and opportunities within lessons for investigations and activities that continue to build students' knowledge and connect it across the module and the grade levels. When we look at the next pillar, which is joyful and rigorous engagement, there certainly is opportunity for kids to get in there and have those hands-on investigations and really explore. See this one, if you can't really see what's going on there, but we have some beans growing, which is always fascinating to me to know how many kids have never seen a plant grow from a seed, and they get really excited. If you're a science teacher on here or young, early childhood, you know how amazing it is to watch them see things that they didn't know that's how it happened. So really having that opportunity. The other part here that I think is great is that there is a connection to be able to use informational texts and fine art. So there are some wonderful trade books, beautiful books that are within and connected that teachers can explore and use with their students and be able to truly engage them and see how science also influences others. And I see Kendrick coming on. I think there's a question.
Yes, we have a question in the chat about how are the hands-on investigations tailored to
Yeah.
support remote learning?
That's a great question. So there's two answers to that. One is there's guidance that can be provided. So when it could happen at home and use simpler materials, there is some support and guidance on how that could happen for what might be easy to find materials. The other answer is, and this is not maybe your favorite, but definitely something if you were to watch the video you would see, but often in the videos that are directed towards students, there's interaction with the investigations through the video. So the students may not be doing all of those things, but there can be some guidance for what's appropriate and easy to find materials at home, but also they're able to engage in the questions as the teachers in the videos demonstrate and what that looks like. And that's provided in the learning plans that you can see. And I'll go through those in just a minute. So lots of different ways in which students are engaging and being able to have this joyful and rigorous engagement with the science content. They're building models, they're engaging with that continued anchor chart, and it really allows them to have exposure to where beautiful fine art and other literacy works that they can see where the science connects and across those stories too. The next thing that I wanted to jump into is this important piece as a former instructional coach and working with science is being educative for teachers. And so I want to talk a little bit about what this means. And so just sharing for you that the curriculum is written by teachers for teachers to help them with what does the content really mean. So when you look at the teacher edition, some of the features you'll see is that there's classroom dialogue that's used to guide teachers to facilitate classroom dialogue and discourse. It's really about like, what are some questions you could ask and what might be some answers you get. It's not intended to be a script. It's intended to support teachers and prompt their thinking about what are strong questions to ask and what to listen for to know that students are ready to move forward in their learning. So the guidance is there to help and support teachers as they are instructing their students. In addition, science, learning, and knowledge are supported with these just-in-time notes. So this picture right here, these are actually pulled out of the teacher guide and they're alongside, you would see them. They're placed in the lesson to offer assistance with topics related to the lesson. So you'll see things like specific teacher notes for that support for English learners, development that's happening. There's connections to other content areas. There's extensions, checks for understanding, spotlights on what that content knowledge and that specific standard and how to develop that further and what's important there. And then of course for differentiated learning needs. So all of this is just in time notes that are provided in the teacher materials with the lessons they coincide with. So just sharing a little bit more there with those, I'll give you a second to take a look. These are really exciting. They really provide some guidance. I love the connections to the other math, and I really like the spotlights on knowledge and skills because it hones in on how to support with that content development, especially when they're difficult concepts. Okay, so jumping in a little bit about, I gave you a lot of info about the structure and the materials themselves and how they're based in those research-based instructional strategies that support teachers and students with getting into science. The other, before I jump here into current needs and COVID challenges, I also just want to share that what is great about this phenomenon, story-based, that is exciting to see in science, is that it's connected learning. Sometimes we get into very discrete pieces of information in science, and the purpose of these materials are really to make those connections stronger for students and to deeply understand as they progress in their content knowledge over grade levels. And really, as we talk about addressing these three COVID pain points of potential learning gaps, capacity for teachers, and then concerns about what the environment will be, I just really want to share that one of the greatest practices is to have strong materials that are based in these research instructional strategies that support students being on grade level and engaged in rigorous and engaging content. And having those there is truly a way to support and develop learning gaps. Another feature that I just wanted to share is one of the things that we've done working with great minds, and they've been so gracious to do this with us as well, is especially in 5th grade, bringing in components that support learning from prior grade levels. That is done throughout, but really you will see it strongly in 5th grade. We know that experiences in K through 5 can vary as students develop their content knowledge, but by 5th grade, we're expecting a lot. And so there definitely is supports within the modules to help with any gaps or unfinished learnings that have occurred because of the quality and the depth of knowledge that each module addresses. Additionally, I just wanted to share that PhD science is available on the Nsync platform, and this really helps to support the coherence and understanding, one, how all of the modules and lessons are connected. It's easy to use. You can see that there's the Spanish available. There's ways to download and view, and then you can even work with great minds to roster students and have the ability to see and assign them as well. This is really a great opportunity to share with students who are in a virtual environment, but also it's an easy access for teachers to be able to navigate the system. I didn't have a video in here. I would definitely encourage you to watch some of the videos. They are really engaging. I've watched a lot of them and they really are helpful. I've used them with my 5-year-old niece, and it's been an exciting opportunity. They are engaging. They prompt students to answer, and there's other children on there, which is really great, especially for our young learners. Yep, I'm going to talk about just a minute. I'll address about the free digital product and using this. So I wanted to also just share with you what's on the Nsync platform. There's user guides. Those Learn Anywhere plans are really intended to support how to use the materials in varying environments with students, whether it's hybrid, remote, or in the classroom. The idea here is there's continuity between. And so what students can learn in the classroom, they also can have that equitable learning experience at home, which is great for your teacher capacity because teachers are not having to find the materials and lessons that could be done in both environments. It really is provides that continuity between. There's digital teacher editions, science journals, PhD projected is there's PowerPoint slides that can be used by teachers to help support as they are engaging their learners in the classroom or virtually. You can see there's those daily videos, there's welcome videos, lots of ways for students to engage, and they're short so that students aren't watching a long progression, but have quick ways for them to engage in the content and interact. The Learn Anywhere plans provide that extra support to help to structure how do you use the materials in varying environments. And that's the intention of these plans, to give guidance to support students who may be outside of the classroom, working virtually at home, and this can share with the teacher how best to support, and then what could be ways for students to engage asynchronously, and where would there be great opportunities to have those video check-ins and how to use those in coordination with one another. So I'm going to jump into licensing because I know I see some questions in there. PhD Science is available for free. It is an OER resource, and so it's available to all Texans. And we put forever. It's one that we hope to continue to work with great minds, and this is an open education resource, and we're allowed to use that, so it's digitally available. The access to the aligned digital tools for PhD Science TEKS edition is available to August 2025. And so there's a great opportunity, which I'm happy to answer questions about when's the next science proclamation, if those are questions, but this will serve you well to support that. And then we work together on where would the TEKS go from here as well. So you can explore and look more at the PhD Science. If you have access, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you already have access to Eureka and you've worked with great minds, you probably have access to both.
Yes. when they were rostering, we did not want to restrict any access at any time. So all Texas districts, when they're rostered, receive all three: Equip, Eureka Math, and PhD Science.
So you may already have it and you don't know if you haven't taken a look at it yet. I encourage you. There are, of course, on texasHomeLearning.org, there are some samples and webinars to take a look at that. But you also can sign up if you don't already have access because you're using Eureka Math TEKS edition, or I encourage you to take a look. It's worth exploring and definitely should be one of the considerations for an option. I did want to just mention that there are the costs. So the digital is completely, you have free access to that. You can print locally. And again, I just want to share that you can use your allotment funds to be reimbursed for those printing components and costs. If you want to work with great minds, they also can support with some of those printing. And then science kits are available for the different modules. We continue to build those out. We're working closely with the Great Minds team to continue to develop modules, and we'll be continuing over the summer to roll out what those materials are for next year. But there are science kits that'll be available. There are trade books. They're not a requirement in the purchase, but they definitely are really, they're beautiful and great books, and you can see them in the videos and use those, but there are some trade books that are used alongside within the modules, and those are for purchase too. So it's just a different way if you want to add on to what you're with the digital product being free. Just a reminder, I'm sure all of you have heard this if you've been here all day, we have opportunities for you to receive some additional support and work with us here at TEA through the CRMSI, the COVID Recovery Instructional Materials Support Initiative, for us to support you. Science is not part of the summer pilot. I will share that with you. We did not work to develop a summer pilot for science, but it is available for the next year. And of course, it's free for you to use right now. So you're able to use it. We're just not including it with our summer pilot this year. If you are interested in thinking through the spring adoption coaching and want to talk more about that, you can sign up and register so you can receive some support and guidance for talking with your district regarding adoption for next year. If you're already part of the CRIMSI pilot, it is something that could you could expand if you weren't already considerate if you're part of the CRIMSI spring pilot. There are multiple modules. It really depends. I see that question in there. There's multiple modules that are available. Not all of them are. I can show you where to find that. It's on our Texas Home Learning page, and it outlines which modules and when they will be available. We're rolling them out as quickly as they can. Great Minds actually was producing K2, and so they decided to jump in this fun with us and start rolling that out early with us. So we're really excited about that. I'm going to pause and see what other questions are there. And then maybe Kendrick, if you can find the link to put on for from the Texas Home Learning site for science. If you look at the instructional materials, you can get to which modules, I believe. But what other questions do we have? Please feel free to come off. Again, we have a small group, so happy to just answer. Thanks, Kendrick. I'm going to stop sharing. If you have really specific questions, I'm very familiar with the materials, so happy to answer those.
So we don't, you don't have a set number of modules that are actively available now?
They're coming out on a rolling basis. And so for each grade level, I think on that link that Kendrick sent, it does share with you which ones are available and when the rest of them are coming out. So it really depends on the grade level. They've been moving pretty quickly.
Yeah, when I looked yesterday, and I'm looking at the CRIMSI website, or that's where they had it. It wasn't very many modules for science.
Well, for science though, especially with like K2, a lot of them have, I'm going to say it wrong, but I want to say like 4 modules. Josh, correct me if I'm, but we do have like also lesson sets that are, because for this very first year, there were some standards that weren't in modules. And so they made specific lessons or lesson sets to make sure that 100% of the standards had assigned lessons to them. I'm trying to pull up the site right now.
Yeah, so you're going to see the modules and then the lesson sets. And then over the summer, those lesson sets are going to then merge into modules so that they can have a coherent story and are not just seen as lesson sets covering standards at the end of a scope and sequence. So when you're coming in now and looking at a particular scope and sequence, and we're looking at year 1, the module map as we look for PhD science of what it will be next year is going to be slightly different than what we see here. And so that's what we're working towards, right? To really display what does the module map look like for K5 at each of those pieces. But yes, we are covering everything. All of the curricula will be published by the end of, I believe it's mid-April, if not by the end of May, for everything to be published. And then over the summer is the reworking of the early modules.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh, thank you. So I'm displaying right here where you can see, but because the modules consist of about 30, that's an average lessons, we have about 4. You can see there's some variation in lengths of modules because some of the modules were shorter. They were these more of a lesson sets in some cases, but that's not the plan for next year. They're working to incorporate those into full modules and be able to make some changes. I also just want to address that there are a few modules that were similar across grade levels. That was intentional for this first year, but that will not be true moving forward. There will be independent modules for each grade level, but it was actually to address some of those learning gaps and some really important concepts especially in grades 3 through 5.
So where I saw in the kinder grade and
Yeah.
it had February, does that mean that those lessons or that module is complete, or because it didn't have now, it just has February. So I'm
Yeah,
of the
this is a
belief
little
B
bit of an older
February.
picture. So because we put it out when we first published our CRIMSI module, so people would know where the recommended was.
Okay.
So for example, like it's already up with some parts of module 3 are up right now and with Matter for March for Kinder. So getting access to the Nsync is will really help you registering and being able to see all the materials that are available.
Yeah, I'm a former scientist as well. And so I get concerned when I just see open dates like that because it doesn't give me a time. Does that mean February of 22? Does it mean February of 19? What does February mean? So,
Yeah.
I just like for us to put a handle on that so that I'm abreast. I was looking for a legend that said this is within the 2021 school year. I didn't see that. So I just needed some guidance as to what those months mean and if it's dealing with the current year.
It is all the current year, but I do want to share with you, like Josh mentioned, this will look a little different for next year because we are we're trying to, one, not overlap any content, and because it was in its first year, we might have had like some less. That's why you see like a 3A, 3B, 3C. Those are some discrete groups of lessons rather than a full module. Like weather, for example, in kinder is a module that is like close to 30 lessons, I think, and it's focused on the anchor phenomena, whereas 3A is about matter, so it's a smaller group of lessons. But for next year, we're working to have like 4 modules per grade level.
Okay.
If that's helpful. And I'm happy to talk more.
And so will the modules cover each of the science disciplines? Is that the idea?
Yeah, they do. And that's the reality in K-5 science is we do have group by disciplines, and it's exciting. Now there could be some crossover with obviously with some standards that might transcend different ones or support one another.
Sure.
For example, like force and motion might also show up a little in earth science, so you could talk about why there's that movement, but for sure it's more of that disciplinary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, get in there. I would love to hear what you think about it. I love it. I think it's a great way, and we to see how to develop science just in a different way that is really like enduring and meaningful for students.
Well, for sure, we'll share it with my curriculum coordinators that now handle that. I'm a little more well-rounded. I handle all of the grade levels with digital access. And so just looking at these has me very excited about a lot of these products.
So glad you were able to come. Are there other questions? I know we have a couple other people, and then Josh, of course, is here to answer.
And I was going to say, if you wanted to gain access or needed help with that, I can put my email in the chat and you can reach out to me and we can get you rostered and set up. We can walk through the steps so that you can get individual access. We can also talk about what does it look like to go through a district rostering. And then I also provide you with the trial login, both from a teacher and a student side, so that you can see what it looks like from both.
Well, Josh, put your name in the email so I do something.
Josh is
Get up
super
there and
helpful.
tease
So,
somebody.
and he's secret. He didn't tell you the secret that he loves science, so he's more willing to help with that. No, he helps with all of it, but
Yes, but a former Texas science educator. I taught star biology for 6 years. So, yes.
yeah. Any other questions from you all for today? I know it's been a long day. We've been here all day.
I'm also interested in and kind of looking at like piloting possibly for
Yeah.
certain campuses in my district. I know I kind of saw like a Google form through the email, like to sign up through Great Minds and all that. And our district does use Clever for like the one, the sign on. I remember you talking about that you guys integrate with the different. So I guess my question is, because it's kind of along the same lines of what you guys have been talking about, just thinking about curriculum writing, because we usually do that like at the beginning of June. And I would like to integrate, like, I'm afraid that if I start planning something at the beginning of June and then it changes, that my teachers will be lost.
No, I mean, we're going to have those maps out, so you'll be able to see what this all looks like prior to then, as we're for the next year. So I think I totally understand your concerns, but you would be able to have some support and information. Although what I was saying is there isn't a CRIMSI pilot. CRIMSI pilot for the summer is focused on pre-K, K through 12 math, K through 12 reading language arts. But that doesn't mean you can't use the materials. So if you're interested in piloting, you certainly can. And then I would encourage you to think about the fall, and we're happy to add some additional support and resources on our end to provide that guidance. But you would have that so if you were going to do it in the fall, for example, you would be getting support through the summer to help guide the teachers in your district.
Is it almost over?
And I was going to say, Stephanie, as well, you can reach out to me, and then I will get you in contact with the implementation leader for Texas with PhD science. That is there on the PhD side that is helping develop and looking at concept maps and all of the various pieces that are fitting together. And so if you're really wanting to plan out in preparation for next year, we can have that as an additional resource, just so that you don't feel like I'm planning something and then it's going to change. The IL will know exactly what's happening because they're there making sure and helping with the rollout. So that's another resource as well.
Yep.
Awesome. And so, yeah, and of course I was thinking of definitely piloting this more for the like 21-22 school year. And I think that that would be great. And so, we typically do back to school trainings in August. And so is there people that can support like during that as well?
Yeah, we would definitely be working with you on that. And then I know we have some supports through TEA. I know there's some additional things that you could work with Great Minds about. I'll just share, like, they do provide some training at additionally, like an add-on cost, but there are some trainings if participating with CRIMSI specifically that will help to support and guide with as well. And we'll be working with them.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions that we can help you with today before we close out? And then I think Kendrick's probably giving you the survey so we can make sure we get feedback.
And I also did just put in the chat the link for CRIMSI. So if you're thinking about that school year pilot, there's information there about that as well, and you can access that application.
Thank you. Well, if you'll take some time to fill out that feedback survey, you got Josh, so you can definitely ask him lots of questions and for support, but let us know if we can do anything else. I'll stay on for just a couple more minutes, but thank you again. And if you've been here the last 2 days, really appreciate you attending and joining us to learn more about Texas Home Learning.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
While I'm here, and it's just in regards to connection to literacy, because that's going to be kind of one of my big focuses, just thinking about where STAR's headed, you know, and I've actually talked to the coordinator and just really focusing on that interdisciplinary connection. So I know you mentioned that there's a lot of, you know, trade books kind of embedded in, but what other kind of literacy connections are there within this program?
Yeah, so there's one thing that's really exciting is, you know, this opportunity for students to write in content knowledge and vocabulary development. And so there's definitely those pieces, and then even small interactions with reading as well. So it's not just about the trade books. It also could be about what they're looking at and develop. I shared with you, like even those developing strong questions and making strong points in their anchor, but there's a lot of opportunities for students to demonstrate their understanding in writing and opportunities to read other science, like artifacts in small pieces. If you're familiar with things like DBQs in social studies for just small artifacts for kids to read and be able to look at as they build their knowledge. So there's a lot of interaction in my thought of how it's brought into the materials. Sorry, Josh, if I'm jumping in.
Oh, that's good. The other piece I was going to add too is, I think for me, right, being a former text teacher, right, the big 4 areas, right, that we cover with ELS, right, like speaking, listening, writing, and so forth. And so in there, right, you're going to have the writing piece almost every day, right? You're going to have that listening piece almost every day. We build in that Socratic seminar that's also happening, where the students are engaging and so forth, right? So they're having all of those chances, right? The big thing for us, right, that driver is that activity before concept before terminology. And so in order for students to get that right, literacy is really where we're building up that multiple modalities for them to express how they're understanding the phenomena unfold.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming. We're going to hop off, but if you can, any other questions, don't forget there's more opportunities in April for you to check back in. You have a direct connection to Josh to answer questions, but thank you again for your time, and we really appreciate you attending today.
Thank you.